9 o'clock, so we will get started on our first Google Meet for the Chromebook Infused Classroom. I would like to encourage each of you to turn on your camera. I know that's hard during the summer, but we do want this to be just a very casual, collaborative time together, and it's easier to do that when you can see everyone's faces, even if your hair, ladies, is in a ponytail, or you're drinking your coffee, or your kids are running back and forth and the dog is barking, whatever. We totally get it. It's the summer. We understand that. If you're listening in and having to join us from the phone or the doctor's office or the car or something, we totally get that, where you may not want to have your camera on at times. But if you don't mind, it just kind of helps to make the group kind of come together and us all to be able to see who we're talking to, form those relationships. One of the things that someone said on the Padlet was, that they wanted to be a part of a group that then comes together and that they can have throughout the year to bounce ideas off of, and just know that we're all in this together. So thanks for all the cameras slowly coming on. So we appreciate that. Maybe if people join later and they see that we have our cameras on, they'll be like, oh, I'm supposed to put my camera on, and they'll put their camera on. So, but we are super excited to spend some time this summer with each of you. Some of you we know, and some of you we don't. So I thought the best thing to do is just real fast go around and you can just unmute and tell us who you are and what school you are at and what grade or subject that you teach. For those of you that may not know who I am, I'm Tracy Davis, and I am the Technology Program Area Specialist. I come from the elementary background for many, many, many years. But have definitely embraced the secondary background in this position that I've had for about the last 5 years. So.
I'll go. Hello, everybody. My name is Kylie Mitchell. I'm here at Skizzy with Tracy Davis, and I'm a secondary instructional coach.
Hey, everyone. I'm Ashley Elliott. I am on the Shelby EdTech team with Tracy and Matt Wilson, and I serve the District K-12 as a technology resource teacher, technology coach, whatever you want to call it. So I'm super excited to be here. This is an incredible book, and I'm just excited to learn alongside all of you.
Hey, y'all. I'm Jennifer Cassidy, and I am one of the secondary program area specialists. It's great to see so many secondary faces in here with us this morning. So excited to learn with y'all.
Hey y'all, I'm Charlotte Smith. I teach second grade at Oak Mountain Elementary.
I'm Arthur Herbert. I also teach second grade at Montevallo Elementary.
Hey, I'm Melanie Gaines. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Melanie.
Okay. Hey, I'm Melanie Gaines. I teach Spanish at Vincent Middle High School. So I'm middle and high school.
And I'm Kelly Mitchell. I teach 7th grade ELA at Helena Middle School.
I'm Shelly Morris. I teach math at Shelby County High School.
I'm Christine Martin, and I teach second grade at Oak Mountain Elementary.
I'm Liz Bertram, and I teach 8th grade science at Helena Middle School.
I'm Melinda Roddy, and I am a secondary instructional coach.
I'm Holly Partridge, and I teach 7th and 8th grade math at Columbiana Middle.
All right, I think that might have been everyone. I know Rachel was talking to us in the car. She may have had her, I did not hear her, but that's Rachel Roberts, and she's at Sierra High School. She might have been muted while she was in the car. So we're super excited. Oh, there she is.
Sorry, yes, I'm picking up my Target order. Sorry, y'all.
Totally fine. Something that we all have to do. That's for sure. So, Rachel, we're glad that you're joining us. There she is. Great. Well, like I said, thanks for joining us today. We're looking forward to our time together. Ashley referenced Matt Wilson, the other member of our Ed Tech team, and he cannot be with us today. He is helping with Vacation Bible School at his church this week. So from the Ed Tech team, it's just Ashley and I today, but we are excited to have you guys. One thing we talked about the keeping your camera on, but the other thing is try to remember to mute yourself if you're not talking, only because there's dogs and kids, and we have a train here at Skizzy, different things like that, and sometimes or you may even get a phone call that you have to take, and we totally understand that as well. So just a little bit of housekeeping things. The next thing before we get started, just to share with you, hopefully all of you have received your book. Is there anyone that has not gotten their book? We had a little bit of issue with the pony and offices being locked and things like that, but we think we've gotten it all straightened out and everyone should have gotten their book. Is that good? Okay, perfect. And then hopefully you have already accessed and made a copy of the document, the digital notebook that we're going to be using. If you haven't, then this, the link that is the bit.ly/22infused that's on this slide that you see will take you to where you can make a copy of that document. So hopefully you used it to take some notes on. Maybe today as we're talking, you may want to type in your document and take some notes on it as well. But I did want to share something with you, and so I'm going to go over to my document and just kind of show you. You should be seeing mine slowly come up, but we have added some things to our parent document that because yours is linked to it, you will see a couple of different things, and I want to just show you some different places. So on this first slide, you will see the link icon. If you go to your second slide, you will also, not only with the link icon, but you will see an update button. So each slide that we have added information to between the last time that we met and today will show that there is an update, that you can click the update and it will automatically update your document. The other thing that you can do that's a little faster is by clicking the down arrow on this first screen and going to linked objects. It pulls up a right side panel and you can see that there are 3 updates available. And if you just click update all, then it will update each and everything that we have. And it might take a minute or two to update that. Hopefully that's going to work. And I'm going to refresh mine to see if that worked for us. And so each of the slides that we have added something to, hopefully will populate with the new information. Of course, I'm not seeing that. Are y'all seeing that on your end? Just want to make sure that we have that set up correctly.
I saw it. I did.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, it worked.
Okay, great. All right. So just want to make sure that you guys get the new information that is on each of the new slides that we have. So just wanted to kind of walk you through that. Each week or every 2 weeks when we meet, we will have new information that we've added to the document. So we'll want to go in each time that we meet and click that update button and update so that you'll have the new information there. All right. So I think we are ready to get started today. So our first question, and once again, this is very casual. We have some questions and just some different ideas to kind of talk through and share and have you all share and us to collaborate. But if you have something else along the lines of what the book talked about in the pages that we read each time that you would like to share, then please feel free to just kind of hop in, and we want this to, be what you need it to be during the summer. All right. our first question that we kind of wanted to start off with was, or I'm going to actually turn it over to Ashley, and she's going to get us started. Sorry about that, Ashley.
Oh, no problem, no problem. All right, so before we really dive into the meat of this book, we want to kind of question and reflect why Chromebooks. You know, we know that during the pandemic, this was kind of what we were forced to do, and so now we're kind of taking a step back and we're reflecting on, you know, why Chromebooks? What is the impact that they have on teaching and learning? And so I just want to kind of hear from you guys. I looked at the responses on the Padlet, and it seems that for the most part, this group in the book study is implementing Chromebooks in some capacity in the classroom. And so that was exciting to hear. So does anyone want to share, you know, what is your take? Like, what do you see as being the importance of having Chromebooks in the classroom?
I'll jump in. I know that a lot of times that several of my teachers that I see in the hallway and everything, and we talk about it, some just use it to fill in some of that basic independent practice. And then one of the suggestions in the book was using it for a exploratory learning. And I know that I don't do that enough for myself. You know, as a math teacher, I do a lot of direct instruction, and then they jump on the Chromebooks with several activities to use as independent practice. And I know that I need to do a better job at giving students the opportunity to properly explore certain concepts, maybe before I even teach it.
That's a great idea. Thank you so much for sharing. Yes, it can be really hard too in the secondary world when you have so much content, you know, to get in, but using it for like an explore board opportunity and turning those independent practice times into something maybe a little bit more creative or engaging, you know, might actually get more buy-in from students. So that's great. Thank you. Anybody else want to share?
I wrote down, Chromebooks contribute to creating equity and democratizing education. And I really like that. I never thought of it that way before. No matter what technology they have at home, they've got the same thing right here in front of them at the school, where access to the same parts. And for the kids that don't get that at home, they have more here. And then the ones that maybe have more at home have to work with what we give them. So I never thought of it. I was really kind of excited about that.
Yes, awesome. Yeah, and also the offline access is a huge deal with that equity for students that may not, in the secondary world where they take their Chromebooks to and from school, for students that may not have that internet access at home, the Chromebook provides that opportunity for them to still be able to work and have that equity. So, awesome.
I'll jump in then. I think too, a lot of times I'm thinking, okay, what do I need to teach them in second grade that's going to benefit them or that they'll need to know in, you know, higher grades? And I think it's important to give them the opportunity to, like she was saying, explore and learn how to do it, because I know, you know, third grade and up, they're going to need to know how to do those skills. And so a lot of times I feel like, you know, whenever we, you know, like type up our paper or create Google slideshows or something like that, you know, allowing them the chance to make mistakes and explore it, that it's setting them up for the future higher grades.
Yes, awesome. And one thing that I love that it touched on in here was taking them into being, you know, digitally literate, you know, being able to not just use this Chromebook, but teaching them to be good citizens, the information that they come across, are they able to tell between credible and non-credible information? And so, you know, that really gets into the meat of, you know, it's more than just the Chromebook itself as the, you know, little computer, but it's more about what we do with it, making those meaningful, engaging experiences, but also, like you were saying, Charlotte, setting them up for the future of really their whole life, even past grade school, you know, their careers, their personal lives, teaching them to be those good citizens. So the Chromebook, that little thing that we can hold in our hand, it's so much more, and it's really powerful when we think deeply about what it can do for students. So any other thoughts on why Chromebooks? Those were all great. Thank you.
the battery life is great, right?
That's what I was about to say.
I know that it seems minor compared to what everyone else has said, but I mean, my Chromebooks that are in my classroom last my kids all day long. If I'm doing IXL all day long, it lasts first through eighth period. So that's a big benefit for me.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, let's kind of go a little bit past that. So let's talk about these users of the Chromebooks, our Gen Z, our students that are in our classrooms right now. And I know there was a lot in here about Gen Z, and it's very different than any of us that are sitting here participating in this book study. And so what were some things that were shocking to you, or maybe things that you already knew about Gen Z and the students you're teaching, and maybe just something you reflected on as you read about the qualities of our Generation Z?
I think one of the things, I have a Gen Z, a couple of them in my house, but I think one of the things that kind of, surprises me at times is, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying before about the digital fluency and being able to use the actual, because they are so tech savvy, and they're used to using technology, but at the same time, they're not always good. They don't always know how to look for things and how to use those things. Because as a Spanish teacher too, I've had my students look up things, and I was kind of surprised at sometimes at how much I had to direct them to where to look. So yeah, I found that very interesting about this generation.
Yeah, and those attention spans, like the 8 second, that was, I'm sure all of us can relate to that from the classroom.
To touch on what you just said, I highlighted, quote, they are not as much tech savvy as they are text dependent. They think they cannot live without it because they've had one in their hand since they were like crawling around their parents' house. Like, it's been their electronic babysitter their entire lives. Like, here, just take my phone. And they just don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've got students that will literally show signs of anxiety if they're not allowed to have their Chromebook open, and because they have like 15 tabs open and they're going back and forth between work and games and what else. And even though I'm running securely and I'm closing those tabs, they just, it's a struggle. Like, they definitely, I agree with that.
And I know at the middle school level, I don't remember where I read this, either in here or somewhere else that I was looking at, but it was talking about giving them an assignment of cleaning up their online profile. And I know at the middle school level, they began to experiment and not make the wisest choices about how they represent themselves online. And I think, I don't remember what they called it. Somebody can help me out. Online...
Your brand. Was it your brand?
Yes, the online brand. And I thought that was such a clever way to describe that, because I think that, like, our middle school students have been told over and over and over again, don't post that, it's forever online. And I think that they need an opportunity, especially within the classroom, since we're teachers, we're role models. They need that opportunity to go and clean up what they've already established for themselves as their brands. I thought that was a really great idea.
Absolutely. And Holly, that really brings up this point. I had heard teachers when I was in the classroom talk about, well, it's not my job to teach them how to be a digital citizen, but it really is. And that's kind of where we've arrived. And that is a huge, I know it can feel kind of like a weight on us, but it's also like, if we step in and we are role models and we model that for students, think of how much that can help them pass grade school, in their personal life, all around. It's just, we have a great opportunity, to be able to be what they need, because we cannot expect that their parents, or maybe some parents are teaching that at home, but that's the scary part, is that all of them have these devices, but how many of them are really being guided and trained at home on how to use them in that appropriate way? So that's a great.
And I think the younger that it starts, the better the student will be, because because, I mean, by middle school, they've already, I know I have a middle schooler, and I know I have to monitor and all that fun stuff. And I mean, even the stuff that I can't catch, you know, they know what they've done and they know what's out there. So if they can clean it up, I think that would be the best thing to do and make those smart decisions.
Absolutely.
I really like that idea of incorporating, you know, like when we're building our classroom rule as a group in the beginning of the year, incorporating this into it. I got really excited about that whole idea and how we can just, you know, incorporate that into the social emotional lessons that I had at the beginning of the year anyways. I was super excited about that whole section there on page 34 and beyond.
I even saw the online cleanup as kind of like for Google Drive as well. Like I know when we first started, when we switched to Gmail and the Google Classroom and all of those things, I think even teachers were overwhelmed with the amount of things that are in my Google Drive. And I finally had to go and I put everything into a folder that was this year to this year. And that's how I kind of have now started. And I think that'd be beneficial for the kids too, because I think they just open up a Google Doc and they don't title it. And so then they've got 15 untitled Google Docs in their drive. So I think teaching them how to organize those things will be beneficial for them as well.
Yes, absolutely. So now that we've talked a little bit about Gen Z and you guys have read the traits, we know that they're very different learners than when we were in the classroom as students. And it's an adjustment, you know, and even for those of us that have been teaching for, you know, a decade, several decades, it's even a shift in mindset. And so how does this, knowing about this, how does this reframe your teaching? What thoughts do you have about maybe transforming an experience or just a certain aspect of your classroom? Does anybody have any ideas or have any thoughts on how this has reframed your mind, knowing more about the Gen Z students?
Well, I think a lot of times we give our kids questions and things that we want them to answer, and we allow them to do Google searches and to find those answers. But I think with Gen Z, they're wanting to come up with more of the questions themselves and research things that are more interesting to them. I might have a direction that I want something to go, but if that's not the direction that the kids are going to learn the most or get the most out of, they should be allowed to kind of veer off in a different direction in that search to where they're making it more valid to them, that they're taking ownership of that rather than me just saying, find the answers to these questions because this is what I thought was important. So.
When it said, give the kids a test and let them Google the answers first, I was like, stop everything you just, like, that goes against I found that very shocking. But also it makes total sense. If we want to do different DOK levels, letting them just Google the answers to begin with and then taking them somewhere else is pretty brilliant. But I had never thought about that because it's cheating, right? Like,
I also liked how, because one of the very first assignments I ever gave when I came mid-year was a quiz, and they were Googling the answers because I allowed them to, but they were Googling the wrong answers. And I had consistently the wrong answer. And so the next day I asked my students, what did you Google? Like, what did you put in? And they put in my question word for word into the search bar. And then they wrote down what was bolded. But what was bolded was linking them to another concept. And it was on government, so it was linking them to something else. So it was a very simple question on which branch of government determines something unconstitutional, and they all told me the legislative branch. So even though they knew that, but because Google said, that's what they all wrote down. So allowing them to Google those answers to be able to determine what is credible, like Ashley was saying earlier, and not credible, or having them read the entire paragraph instead of just seeing what's bold or italicized. I mean, I feel like that's really crucial in their learning process, and adding to that digital fluency, like the book was talking about.
For sure. The whole Google thing, like, making sure they are they are the Google generation. Like, they don't live without using Google. It's a daily thing. They don't know any different. And so that's kind of a way to reframe our thinking. We need to be designing assessments that can't be Google. Like, the things that we're having them do need to be like application and things that, they can't go and Google it necessarily, because that is where we tell them to go get information, right? So if we're going to give them a test and it's just like recall, like information things, then that's just what they always do. I mean, that's what we do day in and day out of this generation, So that's kind of a reframe, is thinking about how we assess them, what is more meaningful to them. They don't want to be just the consumers and spit it back out. They want to have a stage. It talked about that. They want to have a stage. They want to have, something realistic to connect it to. Like, they want to fight for the rights of people, or there's a problem in the world and they want to be a part of solving it. And so, kind of thinking about that when we, determine how we're going to assess them or give them activities to do. So these were all great discussions that could have day long, we could go on for all day about some of these things. So any other ideas about that, Gen Z, and how that reframes our teaching? All right, well, Tracy, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Absolutely. So we've kind of touched on this a little bit already, but the quote, constantly connected but not savvy. And so now, after reading what you read so far, what does that mean to you? And what does that look like for your students in your classroom? Constantly connected but not savvy.
One of the points that kind of stuck out with me is the fact that they're so familiar with so many technologies, but they don't understand, like, they don't know how to select the best one to get the product that they need to produce, or to even evaluate the information. So, if you just gave them a very open-ended assignment where they could choose kind of any digital product, how many would just go to Google Slides because that's what they're familiar with, rather than try something else that might be more appropriate?
Absolutely.
I'll build on that. I agree. That was one of the things that stuck out to me is, we teach them how to use technology, but do they know why we do it? But in second grade, again, it feels like more of an introduction to using technology as a tool rather than, a gaming device or things like that. So my thought process was, I first need to teach them how to use Google Slides, Docs, whatever it may be, and then give them the opportunity to choose, which one they would use and talk about and discuss the why they would choose that, why that would be the best platform.
Yes, and that I'm going to branch that back to what Arthur mentioned at the beginning of the year. And some of the times we jump straight into our content because we know we have a lot to cover in our standards, or this is what's on the pacing guide or the curriculum guide or whatever. But really taking that time to teach them, allow them to explore with it, and then so that throughout the year they already have the beginning knowledge of it, and then they can make those good choices about what do I need to use to fulfill this, or what is going to be the best way to finish this product or to complete this assessment. So sometimes we do have to remember to do that at the, take some time at the beginning, or introduce a few at the beginning of the year that we want our kids to be engaged with, and then wrap back around at the end of the first 9 weeks and the second 9 weeks and add more to their repertoire. So they're not always just using 2 or 3, that we've shared. Good point.
I will add one more thing. I do think that would give us a good way to talk about what's appropriate or not. Like I'm thinking, we might do Google Slides or Google Classrooms, and a lot of times throughout the year, I'll have students like comment on other students or on posts. Like I'm thinking Google Classroom, and it causes us to have that conversation. And I don't want to just turn off that ability, because I want to teach them what's appropriate and what's not. And then that goes into that social aspect of it as they get older. I have a middle schooler too, and unfortunately we learn by messing up, and I would rather them in 7 and 8 year olds, do it in the classroom so we can have those discussions instead of just not giving them access to it. So I think you're right, letting them explore a little bit more in the beginning of the year. That was another thing I said. I need to really have a black and white consequence. Like whenever I give you an assignment or something, because I'm going to be honest, in second grade, allowing them to search and things like that is scary. There's so much out there, and I don't know anything a parent would be more mad about than seeing something inappropriate online at school. So, it kind of sets the stage for that. And I need to know, my students need to know exactly what's going to happen if they get off of, whatever we're using and go to something else, or they open a new tab and they search in Google. And I need to do a better job of letting them know exactly what's going to happen and have, that set up so that they are aware instead of as it comes up dealing with it, if that makes sense. That's something I put for me to figure out and make it known at the beginning of the year.
I like what you said, appropriate, inappropriate. That's an exercise I do throughout the year. We've got a poster that we build. We pull out things and act things out, and I like adding this to that. That's pretty good.
Other thoughts on constantly connected but not tech-savvy? Maybe thoughts that you've had on, like Charlotte shared, for her second grade classroom. Things to do at the beginning of the year or throughout the year. What does that look like for you and your students?
I know I need to do a little bit of a better job of showing mine, because teaching another language, they love some Google Translate, and we have multiple conversations about it during the year, and about because they have a limited knowledge of the language, and they want to make they're middle schoolers and high schoolers, so they want to make these really elaborate sentences when they're describing things, and so they want to go into Google Translate and figure out how to say it, and I'm like, okay, we need to use the vocabulary that we know. I was like, we need to use one, if you want to look up one word, so I've been trying to kind of teach them how to use and the better resources to use, because as far as using a dictionary, there's better dictionaries online than the Google Translate. I was like, anytime you do anything like that, remember, always translate it back into English. I was like, a lot of times it doesn't mean what you think it means. So, but yeah, I know that with mine, especially when they come in, that's one of the things I have to kind of discuss with them is this is what we're going to use. These are the resources that are appropriate and, that are useful, that, I approve. So, I do kind of struggle with that a little bit too with my, with this Gen Z. So,
the automatic, translate there, I'm just going to use that, but not really understanding the implications of it or what it's really saying, those types of things. Yeah.
I want to add one more thing, and this might be slightly off topic, but I wonder, I find myself wondering, and this sounds crazy, is there any way to educate parents on what's appropriate, what's not? I mean, I know that's, crossing a line that probably we shouldn't, but they have access to, Clever and all the things that we use at school, which is great at home. But whenever parents don't monitor it, and it's one of those things that you never thought you would say, but I actually had a student this year trying to, and the parent, and this was at home and emailed me and let me know, trying to record on, I think it was A to Z, the little sibling saying potty words. And I mean, I'm like, I don't know what I don't know what you want me to do about that. I mean, I can have a conversation with the child when they get back to school, of course, but that's kind of in your control. Like that's happening under your roof, So I feel like sometimes, and because, we aren't tech savvy as these kids, that a lot of times the parents don't really know either. We tell them they have access to Clever at home, but then they just kind of send them off to do whatever they want. And I wonder if there's a way for us to, kind of explain the expectations for parents, as ridiculous as that sounds. I don't know if anyone else has a problem with that kind of stuff, but, or right. The comments at home, they're getting on Google Classroom and, or things like that.
I like that idea of when we're sending home our beginning of the year, our management expectations, including that digital communication in there. What's appropriate, what's right. I know exactly what you're talking about and where they do that in A to Z. I haven't had potty words, but I've had kids reading, because you can check it at school when they read to you at home. It's kind of neat. But if we're teaching this, it's kind of like when, at least I'm sending home beginning of every math unit what we're going over and explaining it to parents. So I think that's appropriate. For sure. We already sent this home, right? We sent it home in the use policy for the county. It's just we're kind of not just handing it to them. We're kind of going over in more detail.
Well, I think a lot of the problem is that parents don't know what they have access to. So maybe we need to do a better job of saying, hey, on Learning A to Z, make sure you're monitoring your child. They can record, and I can hear what they're recording.
That's a really good point.
And I'll speak a little bit to that just because I was just recently in the classroom and I was able to be a virtual academy teacher. But part of our Meet the Teacher during the virtual academy was all of this, just like the digital expectation. And to my surprise, parents really appreciated it. I think that they actually are hungry for guidance on how to help their child in the digital world, and they're overwhelmed. And so that actually went over better than I thought. So then the next year when I was back in the general classroom and not doing virtual academy, I incorporated it into my Meet the Teacher night and just made it a part of, and in secondary, if you don't necessarily have a Meet the Teacher, just part of some type of informational thing. And parents, the feedback was actually very positive, and they were very appreciative of the guidance that I've provided. So if that just gives any of you guys, I'm not saying that would be everybody's experience, but it was a good experience on my end. So they were appreciative.
Thank you that's a really good idea. I like the idea. We do our Meet the Teacher as a grade level, and I'll incorporate that in the slides this year. I really like that. Thank you for that, Ashley.
No problem.
And if you haven't looked at Common Sense Media and Common Sense Education, they have some great parent resources from like an infographic or a handout or a little video that you may can look at including in the back to school, or even just sending it home, in an email, type of a thing. So if you haven't checked out Common Sense Education, they have great teacher resources. They have lessons. We use them a lot in lots of different ways already in the district, but they do have parent resources already created that would be good to use for those types of things.
Yeah, I was going to add to that too. I was actually at Bluff Park Elementary, so I was at the elementary level, like K through 5, when when the pandemic hit and everything. They sent all of those kids home with Chromebooks, K through 5. So I know that was really overwhelming for parents, because one of the things our principal had us do, she had us call the parents, kind of check in and see how they were doing. She'd give us lists, and a lot of parents they do want to kind of know how to do it, because I would even assign, because I was a special, at the elementary level teaching Spanish, I was just a special, but I would give them like little Flipgrid challenges and things like that to do, and they kind of, some of them loved it and responded and would do it, and some of them I think it was just just to get through just the schoolwork they had to do, just the things they had to have in order to kind of finish out the year. So I agree with that. I really do think parents do want to know how to use the resources and what they can do with them, because once those kids go home, because I know a lot of us have our own kids. Once they get home, it's like you've got all your own job and everything else going on. So to figure out like what to do with the kids and make sure they're doing the right thing is all, it's just one more thing on your plate and all too. So the parents are also overwhelmed whenever all this is coming at them, and they're having to learn how to use all of the technology and what's appropriate and all that kind of stuff too. So I just think that'd be a really good idea, especially at the elementary level. If not middle and high school as well, let the parents know what's available and what they can and can't do. So.
I think I saw connected as a different way. It was, how are you connected to the Chromebook? And in part of the book, it started talking about the different shortcuts, copy and paste, because the keyboard on a Chromebook is not the same as what parents especially are used to. So like there's no cap locks and there's different things like that, but there's shortcuts to get you there. So I actually started looking at I have a sticker on my Mac that gives me shortcuts. And so I was looking for one for our Chromebooks that maybe we could duplicate and stick on the Chromebooks that we have for the students, because I have high schoolers that don't know how to copy and paste without going to file, copy, and things like that, like on the desktop. So I think that's a good way to help them connect as well.
That's a great take on that sentence of connected but not savvy. So yeah. We do, Shelley, have a resource that has all of those Chromebook shortcuts and tips. If we haven't added it into the slide deck, we'll do that, and then that could be something, at least a start for students and for you to use with your students. So. Okay, well, thinking back to what you added to the Padlet about designing rigorous learning experiences. And then thinking through some of the things that you read about in the book, like the 4 C's and DOK. Also, we have the SAMR model and the EEE model. How do those types of things change your thinking about designing those learning experiences and opportunities for your students? Maybe what you've done in the past to what you hope to do.
Well, for me, I'll jump in. Sorry. I feel like I already do a good job with a lot of that with the DOK, but I don't do it consistently. It's like I'll have the one activity in the unit or, one project in the 9 weeks that does a really great job of kind of hitting those high notes and really getting in depth. And forcing the students to come up, think critically, and also with. But it's just not, like, I guess my question was, like, how do I do this more routinely in the classroom on a day-to-day basis?
Okay. Yeah, and I think that, and feel free anyone to kind of jump in and share how maybe you tackled that, but starting small and then adding to as you go, so not trying to have every level in everything that you possibly do. But yes, maybe you start at DOK, but then the next time you do that same type of assignment, add in that 3 or that 4 to it. So while you use the DOK 1 or 2 to teach that learning experience or that standard or that protocol or the frame, whatever you're using, but then the next time you wrap back around it, not just having it be a one and done, but the next time you wrap back around it, something similar to it or to it, then adding that 3 and 4 to it. And not feeling the pressure also, and we do that as teachers, to have every level in every single thing that we do. That's an unrealistic expectation. We'd love to. That would be the perfect world, but giving ourselves some grace too, but also knowing that we do have to move from that 1 or 2 level. Like we can't just keep our kids at 1 or 2. We have to move to the 3 or 4. And some of that, is what we talked about earlier about the choice and what they are using to complete the assessment or to complete the assignment, those types of things as well.
Right. And I guess
that's the Googleable questions.
And I guess too, part of my concern was getting the kids to feel comfortable with that, because so many of them, especially at the middle school level, if you don't give them a study guide, I'm in the car and there's like fire trucks coming. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But if you don't give them a study guide that has everything on it that's going to be on the test in the exact same format, they just seem lost and they seem like you're not being fair. And so getting them to, have that confidence, I guess, that, hey, you do know this. You can think this through and answer this question. That's one of the concerns that I had, too, reading the book, was just getting the students comfortable with stepping out on their own and doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one of the things that Holly Clark tweeted out earlier was this digital portfolio called a Wakelet. And so I've been thinking this morning when I saw that of how I can incorporate that and really add those third and fourth levels into learning, and then having them see their progression. But it also gives them a way just to store all of what they have created or what I've given them to one location. And I'm teaching AP history next year, and I've just been thinking of how to teach those skills that they need for their AP exam. That will be really helpful, so that they can take a skill that we learned or we practiced earlier in the year to apply it when they take their exam. I didn't get that from the book, but I got it because I followed her on Twitter. But so I guess I've never heard of Wakelet, but I think that that's one of the ways that I'm planning to incorporate those higher levels. Because I think I was that teacher that thought that I was doing it, but really I was just in level 2. I thought I was in level 3, but I was just down there in level 2. So I'm looking forward to being more intentional when I plan to include those with my content standards as well.
Yeah, I love it. Wakelet is a great resource and platform for teachers to use, but also for our students to use as well.
And I'm going to give a little shout out to Google here. Google Sites, just always remember too, like Google Sites is is also a great opportunity or a great platform for them to create a digital portfolio. And so just given that, like, it's very similar to like the Wakelet feel. And so anyway, just wanted to give that little plug, because Google Sites are just so fun, and it adds that creative component as well, that they can create their digital portfolios there too. But one thing about the DOK levels, just thinking about that, when we shift our minds thinking about Generation Z to this idea that our students are not just going to be consumers of the information, but now they're going to create, and they're going to produce, and they're going to, make the questions to the test on their own, or whatever it may be. I think that naturally takes us into the levels 3 and 4 in those DOKs. So just when we think about, again, there's a reason there's levels 1 and through 4. They're all purposeful. They all have their place, and we can't just do away with any of them. But thinking about getting in more of that 3 and 4, that shift of they're no longer the consumer, but now we have them doing something with that information. So that's kind of how when I think about those DOK levels, that's kind of how I think about them.
Any other thoughts on designing lessons?
I like the idea. I mean, maybe not, I guess, lessons, but starting small. We mentioned that, but the ISTE standards, picking out a couple that you focus on for the year, like, I'm already excited about that. So, like empowered learning and digital citizenship. So that's the first 2, but that's the ones that jumped out at me starting with.
Absolutely. we have those same types of standards for students and also for teachers. And so, yeah, to have those in your head, and I love that idea, Arthur, just to pick out a couple to kind of really focus on, especially with the little kids. Second grade, you being in second grade, and thinking about those as you are designing lessons and as you are having your students use the Chromebook, and what, am I designing, what kind of experiences, whether it's assessments or projects or a collaborative experience, with the Chromebook, and just thinking about those standards as well. All right, well, it seems like lots of good thoughts are going through y'all's head as we read, some connections making to next year, things that you're asking and questioning and wanting to know about. And so we look forward to continuing these types of conversations throughout the summer as we go through the book. So Ashley, I think you're still on mute.
I am. Sorry about that. All right, so we're going to kind of move into like the going forward and over the next couple of weeks, like, what do we want you all to read, do, reflect on, that kind of thing. So, but before I go over that, I just wanted to also give a little shout out talking about the ISTE standards for teachers and students. If you haven't had a chance to check out the Schoology course to learn on your own for enhancing and amplifying instruction, Module 1 is all, like, you're going to notice as you start getting into Module 1, if you've not already taken a look at that Schoology course, that so much of the Chromebook Infused Classroom is Module 1. And so that entire course was built upon the ISTE standards, Arthur. So just that might be really helpful for you to think about as you go through that course, wanting to incorporate that into your classroom. But that is a great course, and so much of Module 1 was pulled from the Chromebook Infused Classroom. So that might, enhance your learning to go through that module of the Schoology course alongside this book study. So what we kind of want you to do going forward, we're going to be reading the Chromebook Infused Classroom chapter as well as the Chromebook Infused Student. All of that is on your to-do list on your notebook, your digital notebook that you have for this book study. So you don't have to remember this, it's there. But we're also wanting you to create a book snap that goes along with your reading. So have any of you ever heard of a book snap? Anybody familiar? So it's basically just like, you can think of it as taking a picture of a thought from that part of your reading. You put a little annotation with it. There's a template that is linked on your to-do list that will take you into that book snap slide deck, and you just pick one of the slides. There's several empty template slides. You just pick one, and you're going to reflect out about something you read from those two chapters. It can be anything. You can add in a picture, you can pull in a meme or a GIF, anything that you want that just helps you to connect to that reading. And then we'll look at those at the next meeting on June the 21st. And then one last thing we want you to do, and this is kind of your reflection question, and you're also going to respond on a Jamboard, which is also linked on your to-do list. But your question is going to be, do I need a change? And this can be however you interpret that, a change in my planning, a change in my classroom, a change in what I want my students to do, maybe my procedures in my classroom, whatever it might be. Is there a standard or a unit that you struggle to teach? Is there a practice that needs a new look, a facelift, So just pinpoint one area that you would like to focus on refreshing as we go through this book study. So think about, maybe it can be broad or it can be one specific thing, and let that be your focus as we go through this book study, and you're just going to share that out on the Jamboard. But again, all of those details about your to-do list are found in that digital notebook, and anytime that you have a question, just reach out to Tracy, Matt, or I, and we can continue to collaborate and discuss throughout the next 2 weeks. So,
and some of the resources that we kind of referenced today or that were in the book are on the resources slide in your slide deck. So they will link out for you to have, so you don't have to go, find them as well. But we're looking forward to just seeing, reading, and hearing about, what you're looking for, kind of refreshing, moving forward into next school year, and how this book will kind of drive that change in your classroom. So we hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in about 2 weeks for our second time together. So thanks for joining us today.
Bye, guys.
Bye.